Okay, Senator Patterson, I'll give you the call.
Thanks, Chair. I want to return to the Operation Resolute discussion from yesterday, and I'm interested in both the operational side of it and the budget side of it, if the relevant officials could come forward. I'm particularly interested in understanding the Table 3 under Operations Summary on page 15 of the Defence Portfolio Statement, where it's talking about the net additional cost of major operations, if the relevant official is available. Thank you, Mr Groves. Operation Resolute, under Table 3 on that page, the estimated actual net additional cost for 22-23 was 84.7, and for 23-24 it's 77.5. Is that the same number that we were talking about yesterday under the no win, no loss principle?
Stephen Groves, Chief Finance Officer, Department of Defence. I think I was actually referring to the 77.5 for 23-24.
Yes, that's what I'm asking about.
Sorry, yes.
That is the same one. So that is additional funding for Operation Resolute that has been made available to Defence because of increased requirements of Defence to support the operation.
That's correct.
All right, and I know I asked you this yesterday, but can you shed any light, or can any operational person come forward who can, on exactly what was the need for that? What caused that increased demand?
Senator, Chief of the Defence Force. So, Operation Resolute is the ADF's contribution to the whole of government effort to protect Australia's borders and offshore maritime interests. This includes illegal maritime arrivals, prohibited imports and exports, maritime terrorism, illegal exploitation of natural resources, compromises to biosecurity, illegal activities in protected areas, maritime pollution and piracy, robbery and violence at sea. Through Operation Resolute, the Australian Defence Force contributes also to the whole of government effort of the Joint Interagency Task Force Operation Sovereign Borders to protect Australia's borders and offshore maritime interests. And Resolute is undertaken by ADF force elements placed under the command of the Commander of Maritime Border Command, Rear Admiral Justin Jones. And the cost of Operation Resolute will modulate depending on the requirements of Maritime Border Command for ADF, typically asset support, whether air or sea asset support, in response to the scale and challenges of those variety of maritime security concerns that I read out earlier.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeking to understand. What has changed that has required that or facilitated that extra demand?
I think that work on the support through Operation Resolute to Operation Sovereign Borders is an area that has been in recent months higher than sort of a background average of recent years. But it really does depend on the whole combination of the different challenges and the capacity of Maritime Border Command and its Australian Border Force air and sea assets to support or to be supported by the ADF.
Sure. So OSB is the main driver of that need for additional funding?
Sometimes it's OSB, sometimes it is concerns for the integrity of Australia's natural resources.
But what is it in this instance? Sorry, CDF.
So I'm just going to check with the Chief Financial Officer for the periods in which the additional resource expenditure has been identified.
Senator, the 77.5 was for the 23-24 financial year. We had estimated actuals for 22-23 in that same table that you were referring to earlier, around 84.7. And I think from memory it's been fluctuating around that level for, I don't have the detail on previous years, but it's been up around that level for a little while.
Yeah, I've got the numbers. What I want to know is what's driving it. My understanding from the CDS evidence is that it's primarily Operation Sovereign Borders. Is that your understanding too, Mr Groves?
In the main, for Resolute, that is my understanding in the main.
I imagine you won't be able to do this here, but on notice, could you break down what proportion of that 77.5 and indeed that 84.7 in the previous financial year was due to Operation Sovereign Borders and what was due to other operations under Resolute?
Senator, that might be difficult in that all of the force elements that are assigned, the patrol boats and the aircraft, undertake aspects of all of the different civil maritime security response challenges. I think the most reasonable thing would be to say mostly the scale is driven by sovereign borders, but there are times when other elements of this variety of civil maritime security challenges also lift the contribution that we might make.
Yeah.
And if there are periods in which the Australian Border Force might have a vessel that is no longer able to undertake its mission, we might have to add one of our own. Similarly, when they have all vessels operating, we might reduce.
Okay. Well, let's just see what you can do on notice.
Yeah.
Go away and reflect on that, and I look forward to seeing what you can provide. But you mentioned in a previous answer, CDF, that the tempo or the requirements have been higher in recent months than they have been in previous years. What do you attribute that to?
I think that it's our contribution towards the sovereign borders role, Senator.
But why have you been required to contribute more in recent months than you have been in recent years? What's the change in circumstances or environment that has required that?
Look, Senator, the detail of that response would be more authoritatively given by the Commander of Maritime Border Command, Rear Admiral Justin Jones, but the contribution we make is based either on our understanding of the intelligence picture of illegal maritime arrival movements or intentions or people smuggling intentions, or otherwise by our judgment of the degree to which we are realising a deterrent effect to mitigate against the intention of people smugglers and persons who might have an inclination to travel.
So does that mean there's a higher risk of illegal maritime arrivals now than there was previously?
Senator, that's something that Commander Maritime Border Command would be the right authority to assess.
Can a relevant official who can speak to that come forward?
We don't have Commander Maritime Border Command here. He works for the Commissioner of the Australian Border Force, having been seconded from the Australian Defence Force.
Okay, we previously have evidence in this session of estimates from Admiral Noonan on this question. So if Admiral Noonan is available, can he come forward? If someone who has knowledge of this is available, can they come forward? I don't mind who it is, but these are uniformed personnel who are under your authority, and I would appreciate their assistance.
So Senator, Admiral Noonan completed his duties in the Australian Defence Force in July of 22. Admiral Hammond is now our Chief of Navy. I'm happy to return to the question you ask and see if I can answer it, but as I say, the authoritative answer would be from the Commander Maritime Border Command.
So if these are your people that are on these operations, are you saying you can't speak to the activities of your own people?
So, Senator, you're asking for a judgment with regard to the reasoning that the Commander of Maritime Border Command has sought to draw either additional or fewer assets from the Defence Force. And that's why I say it's rightly a matter that he is the authoritative respondent to.
So are you saying that you don't know? It's not within your knowledge? They didn't tell you? They just said we're going to need a few more ships. Can you provide them for no reason?
No, Senator, I'm saying that I'm very conscious of where is the right authoritative response to the Senate committee, and it is to the Commander of Maritime Border Command. As I say, I will give you a reply.
Well, that's what I'm
the Commander
seeking.
of Maritime Border Command is the appropriate authority.
You have made that point, CDF, and I do understand that, and I have asked questions in Home Affairs on the same question, but I'm interested in your evidence. I really would appreciate your assistance. Let's go to the evidence from February this year, where Admiral Noonan said, and I quote, "Navy provides 5 patrol boats per day in support of Operation Resolute. We also provide 1 large hulled vessel for up to 300 days per financial year and 1 vessel as an operational response vessel at 72 hours notice to move. We've met the requirement consistently and without a break in accordance with the CDF's preparedness directive." Have there been any changes to that provision of defence assets?
So, Senator, we are now in a setting in which we are providing to Maritime Border Command 8 Royal Australian Navy vessels with an additional 2 vessels able to be committed should they be required, but hence on a standby positioning.
Can you break down those 8? Is that the 5 patrol boats, or is it an increased number of patrol boats, or is it other vessels? What makes up that 8?
Sure. I'm just going to ask Air Vice Marshal Chappell to give a detail of the specific vessels that are deployed at sea today.
Senator, Air Vice Marshal Stephen Chappell, Head of Military Strategic Commitments. The current vessels, as CDF has described, is 8. They have 5 patrol boats and 3 other warships or large hull vessels, and the additional vessels that are on a recall ability for the Commander of Joint Task Force.
So that's an increase in the evidence from February when there was only 1 large hull vessel available or made available.
That's correct, Senator. That's at the request of Commander OSB, Maritime Border Command.
What was the reason for that increase in resources being requested?
Senator, as CDF described, that's best a matter for Maritime Border Command, OSB and Home Affairs. However, it is based on their intelligence assessments that we have provided those requests in accordance with the Commander's.
Right, and what do their intelligence assessments say?
I'm not at liberty to say that, Senator, but I would refer you to Home Affairs.
Why are you not at liberty to say?
Well, they're classified intelligence assessments, Senator, and they're made by the authority of the Home Affairs Department and Operation Sovereign Borders.
Would it be fair to say that it's because of an increased risk of illegal maritime arrivals?
Senator, I would summarise the Commander of Maritime Border Command's intention in seeking the additional vessels so as to ensure the realisation of an effective deterrence and response effect. That's what he's doing.
Right, but I mean, something's changed, and only since February, right? This is only a few months ago. So what events have occurred between now and February that's led to this?
His judgment that he would require additional vessels to realise those effects.
That's obviously...
Deterrence was pretty effective previously, wasn't it?
I can see the point, the very political point that is being sought to be made, but perhaps I can just offer the committee this, that the government has made it very clear our intention to maintain strong border protection settings. And the advice that is being provided to you from officials is twofold. It's that where additional resources are requested, they are being provided, and also that the lead agency for this lives in the Home Affairs portfolio, not in this portfolio, and that if you are seeking the kind of information that you're seeking, you're going to need to ask questions there. I think the officials have sought to be quite helpful.
Thanks, Minister, and I'm grateful for their assistance, and I'm grateful that we finally got that answer about the increased resources that have been provided. But of course, this is the appropriate place to ask it because this committee has an interest in what the demands are on the ADF, and we now know there are increased demands on the ADF in order to support Operation Resolute, and that should be of concern to all of us because those resources were not required before, and because of the evidence we had yesterday and as we've known for some time, these are the most dangerous strategic environment since World War II, and we are now devoting more resources than we had to before to border protection, which appears to be clearly linked to a change in policy.
You are asserting that. I don't believe that that's the evidence that's been put before you, Senator Patterson.
Okay. Well, then, what is the other reason why? What's the reason for the increase in operational tempo, if not a change in policy?
As indicated, the questions around the operation need to be directed to the appropriate agency.
Okay. Well, I think it's quite clear what's happening here. Thank you, Chair. I can move on to other matters if you like, or you can rotate the call if you prefer.
Look,
sorry, can I just one question just off of Senator Patterson's? You've outlined the increase in maritime vessels. Is it only in the maritime domain that there has been an increase in ADF resources?
Senator, has there been an increase in ADF resources?
Applied to Operation Sovereign Borders, just following on from Senator Patterson.
Are you saying resources in terms of money, or are you talking about vessels? So there's an increase in vessels.
So we know there's an increase in budget,
yes,
to meet the costs.
Yes.
We know there's an increase in vessels in the maritime domain being deployed to assist. Is the increased budget being deployed in any other assets or personnel to provide additional support to OSB?
Senator Vice Marshal Stephen Chappell, the increase in assets does include an additional maritime patrol aircraft. That is not new necessarily. The requirement or the request from the relevant commander at Operation Sovereign Borders, that'll wax and wane depending on a number of factors. At the moment, we'll have 1 to 2 maritime patrol aircraft available to that commander. As a steady state, there's generally 1 on a recall, but that has waxed and waned over the years.
But at present, that's at 2.
It's at 2 at the moment, Senator, that's correct.
Thank you.
I should clarify, I said before, the evidence I was referring to from Admiral Noonan was from February this year, but of course it was February last year, which in fact demonstrates the point even more strongly. It was prior to the election and prior to the policy change. Moving on.